So I wrote a poem for y'all. It's a haiku or whatever. Y'all want to hear it? It's called Pleasure Redefined. To dance in orbit around lavender-kissed words and cocoa brown skin. Now let's get back to queer. Whoa. Oh, I can't even get it out. That's so funny. That's how corny it is. Welcome to Let's Get Back to Queer, a podcast that aims to hit that G spot in your mind. Oh, that was so corny. I'm your host, Brandon Nick. Last year, I read Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Maree Brown. Shout out to A&B. The book is pretty amazing. If you haven't, I recommend you do yourself a favor and get into it. As she describes in the book, pleasure activism is the work we do to reclaim our whole, happy, and satisfiable selves from the impacts, delusions, and limitations of oppression and or white supremacy. For me, it explores the ways in which we can use pleasure as a compass to navigate life. Quick story, I was gifted her first book, Emergent Strategy, which you should also check out, the weekend before Pleasure Activism was released. I found her Twitter and saw she released Pleasure Activism, went to Strand to buy the book on Tuesday, found out she was doing a book reading at Blue Stockings on Thursday, and rushed over there after work. Blue Stockings was packed boots. Like, I was standing right outside the entrance door listening in as hard as I could. I found an interview she did with the Laura Flanders Show where she reads an excerpt from the book, The Uses of the Erotic by Audre Lorde.
We have been raised to fear the yes within ourselves, our deepest cravings. But once recognized, those which do not enhance our future lose their power and can be altered. The fear of our desires keeps them suspect and indiscriminately powerful. For to suppress any truth is to give it strength beyond endurance.
Audre Lorde's text, The Uses of the Erotic, is a foundational text for pleasure activism. And I feel like what she was saying to us, what she was teaching us so much was that pleasure and the erotic, the awakening, the erotic awakening, is a way that we actually reclaim our whole selves, our real selves, our true selves.
This book really helped me gain new understandings of pleasure and language for my desires in life. That's what today's episode is about. People who redefined what pleasure looks like for them while discovering and exploring their desires. Later, we'll hear from a fairy tale couple made real. But first, a look at titties. If you Google double mastectomy and search the images, you're more than likely going to see white women. But if you do see any black women, chances are one of them is Ericka Hart. Many moons ago, the world was gagged by a photo that went wildly viral of her going topless at Afropunk. The cause of all the gaggage and the reason the photo went so viral were the noticeable scars across her breasts. I sat with Ericka Hart to talk about how she's reclaimed her body and defined sexiness. When do you feel sexiest?
I've been thinking about this question a lot. When do I feel sexiest? Probably when sheets are clean and they're on the bed and I just taken a shower and I get in the bed naked. Anytime I'm twerking, whether it be good or bad, but whatever I call twerking, whatever my body is doing when it is gyrating, I feel sexy.
Ericka is a breast cancer survivor and a very respected sex educator who knows what she's talking about and what she's doing. She approaches sex education from two truths: that gender and sexuality are fluid, because they are, and that black women in marginalized bodies have historically been a site of violence in the medical world, which we also know is true. But before she was the Google of sex, she was a young child who was just discovering the touch of her hand.
When I discovered masturbation, and I discovered it very, very young, and I didn't know what it was. So it's like around the time that I discovered porn, and me and my neighbors would essentially masturbate together, almost like a circle jerk, but like kids. But that was the first time, and it was innocent. We did it in complete secret. We didn't know what we were doing, but we knew it felt good, and that was it.
And she continued secretly masturbating until she realized that someone had found out. Her auntie had a Bible that sat out in her home. It was one of those dual-sided Bibles where one side was the good word and the other was a simplified translation, like an Old Testament for dummies. Ericka's auntie would occasionally have her read this Bible, and this one day she does.
And on the layman's term side, it said, masturbation is wrong. And I was like, shit. Jesus is speaking to me. It's telling me that I have to stop. And that was literally the first time that I was like, this is wrong. Like, I really felt like Jesus can see me. And now I should no longer be doing this because it's wrong. It's in the Bible. I shouldn't do it.
Did you stop?
Hell no. You know what I would do? I would pray. I would pray afterwards. I'd be like, please, God, I don't want to go to hell.
When she was older, she attended an abstinence-only school. And even though she was still masturbating, she knew very little about sex. But she knew it was happening around her, and she wanted answers.
The teacher won't talk about sex, and I don't understand why. We all thought that she had a vibrator in her desk. We would walk into the class, and she had the blackboard outside of it that was like, what is sex? It was like in the hallway, and it was like this anticipation of what is about to happen in this classroom that's different from our math classroom or our science classroom. She was like, so we're going to talk about sex today, and all I have to say is that you're not going to have it until you get married. And I was just like, well, we don't know what it is. And this was around the time of AOL dial-up. It like literally just came out. So I just had so many questions. So I just would Google things, and I would ask people questions, and I would be in chat rooms, and I would just watch people's dialogue. And then my friends were having sex. And I was like, well, nobody is talking to them about what they're going through. They're talking to me.
And the more they talked to her, the more and more interested she got in learning about sex. In high school, she became her friend's personal Axe Jeeves, like a Black Dr. Ruth. And one night, she got a call that would put her knowledge and expertise to the test.
Like my best friend's mom put me on the phone when she was screaming at her daughter about not going on birth control. And I had to convince her mom to let her go on birth control. And I was like 13. And from there, like from high school, I've just said, you know, I want to either teach sex ed or be a sex therapist. And I think for a long time I said I wanted to be a sex therapist because I loved Oprah. So I was like, I want to be the Oprah for sex. You get a dildo, you get a dildo, you get a vibrator, I would love that. Like, I want people to come on my show, be confused, and get their life because I answer their questions.
Fast forward to 2014. She's a 20-something living paycheck to paycheck while in grad school, newly engaged and planning her wedding with her soon-to-be white wife. Later that year, she finds out that she has bilateral breast cancer, which means they found it in both breasts. Picture it. Going to get fitted for your wedding gown with surgical drains sticking out from your breasts. That was Ericka's reality, planning a wedding as a newly diagnosed cancer patient. It's worth mentioning that Black women have a 31% breast cancer mortality rate, the highest of any ethnic group in the U.S. So there was a lot on her plate and her mind, but it was in those still moments during treatment that she was able to be reflective.
Well, literally in chemotherapy, you just sit. There's nothing else to do. You can watch TV, you can read a book. And I loved watching TV, like Regis and Kelly. My thing was always in the morning. So like 9 a.m., I would just watch Regis and Kelly. And I would try to go somewhere else. But I still had a lot to think about. Like, who is this person that I'm with? And that argument that we had so long ago, what happened to that? Or, I don't really feel happy. So much sitting and thinking and being sedentary that when I finished chemo, it was almost like out of a coma.
The complications surrounding how Ericka and her wife navigated her illness and disability took a toll. A year and a half into being married, they divorced. Ericka no longer wanted to live in a world where her illness felt like a barrier for connection and interaction. She also no longer wanted to be with a white person.
Like, I'm no longer on airplane mode, and I don't want to be here anymore. This all feels strange. It feels strange to be with a white person. Like, it was almost like, Ebony, my partner now, says, your soul returned. can't say that I didn't have I'm Black and I'm proud when I was going through breast cancer, but I feel like it wasn't as celebratory as it is now. Like, I feel like there is a lot of internalized anti-Blackness that I've had to undo over time. That, again, when that soul returned, it was like, where the hell you been? Like, okay, we're back.
Black in action, Ericka was redefining what pleasure and joy looked like for her. During all of this, she'd been working as a sex educator.
As a sex educator, I've always been here for vulvas and vaginas and breasts, not so much. Like, I've never been really connected to my breasts. So there wasn't really a moment to mourn anything. I think now, as somebody who wants to have children, there is a mourning of the fact that I won't be able to breastfeed. I want to fucking whip my titty out and do that and make the world uncomfortable so my child gets nourishment. Like, that is something that I deeply want to share that experience, and it's sad for me that I won't be able to.
Cancer had taken more than her breasts. The possibility of being able to breastfeed was just one of the things she was mourning. Because of cancer, her libido dropped and she almost completely lost her sex drive.
So sex was something that was very important, and I started to feel like fatigue and tired and not sexy, and I was like, that's so strange. I think I tried to masturbate with maybe like a magic wand or like a bullet vibrator or something, and I just wasn't feeling it, which is bizarre because I fucking love a magic wand. But it just wouldn't come. I just didn't, no pun intended. Or pun intended.
Typically, when someone is in chemotherapy, the oncologist gives you a thick-ass stack of papers with side effects detailing what can happen to your body while you're in chemo. Things like bone loss or potential infertility. But Ericka wasn't seeing anything in her packet about her lack of sex drive. So what'd she do?
Back to the internet again. It was like, chemotherapy can lower your libido. So I went to my doctor, my oncologist. I think I texted my oncologist because we text. I was like, you have to tell every patient this. You know, you have to tell them that there could be vaginal dryness, loss or lack of libido, fatigue, like just a lot of things that are related to your sexual self, if you wish to be. Like, we need to know that those things may change, you know, and that our bodies will change because this is a treatment that is designed to kill almost every cell in your body so it can pinpoint cancer. But it's not like, oh, there's the cancer, let me get it. It's every cell. So any cell that was there to produce lubrication, your vaginal walls doing that, it's not going to do it anymore.
And so Ericka, aka the Oprah of sex, figured if doctors weren't going to inform breast cancer patients about these issues, that she would. That she'd take matters into her own hands.
So I created a whole fucking curriculum for people living with cancer to experience pleasure. Pre-diagnosis, when they're going through treatment, and post-diagnosis, because there's so many changes to the body throughout that time.
And in this fucking curriculum?
A big one is like to mourn what has happened and to discuss it. Go to therapy, like deal with like the emotional aspect of it. Don't try to skip over that. Kink is a big aspect of that. So finding ways to heal through pain. Breast cancer or any type of cancer can be very painful. Now, what I say is non-consensually. And obviously you give doctors consent and there's, painkillers and all this stuff, but none of that is fun pain. So like being spanked or being flogged or maybe even being punched in fatty areas on your body feels really good to reclaim the pain that you went through.
She also recommends lube, lots of lube, and trying sex toys. Another tip, trusting someone enough to submit to them.
A good thing to know is that the sub is really the person that's in control. People think the dom has the control, but but the sub is actually the person that's in control, because when the sub says no more or stop or more, the dom has to listen to that, right? And so being a submissive and having someone like literally take care of your every wish and desire is also like a really great way to heal, because sometimes a lot of survivors have to take care of everything. And everybody, we hold emotions for this person and that person. It's such an honor for me to submit, because that requires a lot of trust of another person to be taken care of.
Ericka is a pleasure activist down. she was able to not only reclaim her sexual pleasures and what it meant to her, but also help other cancer survivors reclaim their pleasures as well with her fucking curriculum. I love saying that. What is something that you take pleasure in or something that brings you joy?
What's pleasurable to me is taking an Uber. That's pleasure that I can access not getting on that fucking accessible ass, over-policed, smelly train. Like, if I have not been surrounded by people not saying excuse me, bumping into me, people like asking me if I want to buy this or buy that and walking past police, which is a trigger for me. Like, if I don't have to do all that, I'm more likely to be aroused by the time I get home.
And in terms of loving her body, if you follow her on IG, you know she loves to give you body.
Photography has always been a way for me to reclaim my body. So lots of selfies, lots of like timer set nude sessions. Also just like being in the mirror and just looking at my body newly. And I like my scars. I like how they look. I think they're pretty.
Well, for you, what is the future of pleasure and desire? What does the future look like for you? And this could be for you personally or, existentially.
I can answer it existentially because it would also be for me. It's the end of white supremacy, the end of prison industrial complex, the end of classism, the end of sexism, the end of the gender binary, like all of these things ending so people can actually get free because the ways that we get constrained are oftentimes within these systems. So having those melt away by whatever activism happens or educational sphere needs to be in place is how we get free. And it's how we access pleasure.
Literally all of that. Be free, and we'll be back after this break.
What's up, y'all? I'm Shannon Joy, and pleasure is a very big deal to me. I take pleasure in the simple things in life. Waking up late, having my morning all to myself, doing my yoga, eating a delicious meal, kikiing with my friends, and occasionally going out and shaking my ass. We reached out to some folks in the community to find out what y'all take pleasure in, and here's what they had to say.
I absolutely love taking candlelit bubble baths with lemon, rosemary, lavender, and a nice-ass playlist. And every now and then, there's some sort of fun pleasure tool in there, if you know what I mean.
Something that I take pleasure in during the lockdown, I got deep into my YouTube premium audiobooks. And I'll on one tab, I'll put a cute book on, and then I'll go to my Spotify and put on a playlist that's good for reading and that's pleasurable to me.
What brings me pleasure is my baby's big, warm chocolate cake. Tastes so good. When I eat it, he smiles.
I really take pleasure in setting intentions, really thinking about the magic of what it means to say, I really want this, and I'm gonna let myself have it. Bitch, do what you need to be good, to be well, all of that. That is pure magic to me.
Something that brings me a lot of pleasure is watching blackheads being popped on YouTube. So acne videos. I don't know why, but that really satisfies me and it relaxes me. And it's really gross to admit that. But it brings me a lot of pleasure.
One thing I take pleasure in is the conjoining of spirits. So whether that be through community, through friendship, through intimacy, that's one thing I take pleasure in.
And this body yaddy has been committed to another body yaddy going on 9 years, August 2nd. And something that truly gives me pleasure is when she touches the small of my back, child. She'll be cooking, or I'll go wash my hands, and it'll just be so subtle, or I'm walking by, and it's just like such a light and delicate touch, but it feels so meaningful, and I'm like, it's beautiful. So yeah, something that I love as pleasure is feeling my babe touch the small of my back. Ugh.
Part 2. Boxes. They're meant to store things: books, clothes, old memories, a package, a child's imagination. Identities? Not so much. But in America, where straight people don't want that sexuality shoved down their throats, where people think being bisexual means you're being greedy and want you to choose, how are we as Black, queer, and trans folks carving out space to define who and what we are? Audre Lorde once said, "That is how I learned that if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies of me and eaten alive." What does it take for us to create our own fantasies, to choose who we love and how we love, irregardless of what society deems normal?
If monogamy was the only option, I would feel extremely limited. I would probably be unhappy.
That's Devin Lowe. Devin, like many of us, spent his formative years being told by family, friends, music, movies, and TV who he is, what he is, and how he should love. Devin had to unpack all of those boxes he'd been placed in, and even when he was discovering newer versions of himself, he had to navigate through the shame and make sense of how his desires factored in.
I did find myself attracted to men, but for a long time I did not want to acknowledge that to myself or others. Like, before I came out as trans, I was identifying as a stud, or like people would call me like a butch lesbian. At that time, I felt like because I was trying to present in this masculine way that I could only be attracted to feminine people. And then after coming out as trans and transitioning, that kind of even magnified a bit. I think that I felt like I was only allowed to date or express attraction to femme-identified people. Otherwise, people would question my gender, along with my sexuality. But it's very interesting how much growth that I have gone through in my life, because now, as a queer pansexual person, my partner is trans. Obviously, I'm attracted to trans feminine folks. I'm attracted to folks on all across the spectrum.
Growth, we love to see it. And speaking of love, corny segue, I know. But speaking of love, I wanted to know about his partner.
My name is Morticia Godiva, and my pronouns are her, she, like the chocolate.
Morticia is actually my first polyamorous relationship. Before, I had always been monogamous.
Oh, Morticia is his first. They're definitely bagels. They are so fun and adorable and loving. If you know them or seen them on social media, then you would know what I mean. When I first sat down to interview them, they had recently celebrated their 2nd anniversary. So they uploaded this video, and well, I'll just play a clip.
Suck your dick from the back, make your asshole clap. You ain't never had that. Today is the anniversary of our first date. One of my favorite things about Devin is his heart and his our legs touching up against each other. Suck the bone off a gristle, make your asshole whistle like the Andy Griffith theme song all night long. I make you whistle.
So I wanted to talk to Dorticia. Devin, Morticia? I don't know. I wanted to talk to them about their relationship and the beauty of these two people loving each other.
Before dating Devin, I really, Devin is my first partner.
That is so sweet.
And I had only courted, dated, been sexually involved with cis people, cis men specifically. And so being with another person of trans experience, it's been affirming in every way that it could possibly be.
Wow. Devin is Morticia's first relationship, and Morticia is his first poly partner. So I gotta know, what is the story of Mevin? Morticia, never mind. How did this story of firsts begin?
So I'm gonna take you to a time.
We met at a museum. It's like, I know, isn't it beautiful? I know, she thinks it's a fairy tale. We actually met through India Moore. Like, I was like going to hang out at the museum with India, and she brought Morticia along. And
it's funny because before I moved to New York, I had seen this, I saw this video, this live of like India that kind of went viral, and it was India talking about cis men and they're attracting to trans women. Blah. Anyway, so we became Facebook friends, and then I think just like the algorithm, Devin popped up, and so
the people you may know.
Yeah, and I was like, I probably do know him, or I'm trying to get to know him. And I had seen Devin online, and so when I met Devin in person with India, I was kind of just like, I don't know, it was flirtatious enough to where I remember him touching I remember how his hand felt when, I remember him touching my hand when he was, I don't know, I feel like you said something along the lines of like, I hope to see you again, or something like that. But when we actually touched, when we were getting ready to part, I remember like us looking at it, like us seeing each other. And from that moment, I decided, well, actually, I don't know that I decided in that moment. The Virgo in me is just like, you're gonna have to show me. And if I don't see it, then I'm not having any, I'm not buying it, I don't want it. India and I had a few conversations, and they were like, oh, you should talk to Devin. And so I was like, cool, I'm gonna talk to Devin. So I slid into Devin's DMs. Hi, Devin, this is Morticia. Hope you're well. Would you like to go out for a cold bevy or something like to that effect? I remember using the word bevy because I was like, it's cute.
This girl asked me out for a soda.
I said bevy, and then we went out.
And then we found each other, and she was trying to take. She's like, where you want to go? I was like, when I realized she was talking about like an actual like soda pop type shit, I was like, I thought we were going for a drink.
It wasn't like, that. It was
let's find a bar like right over here.
It was that I didn't know Devin yet, and I was like, this man could have battled addiction, alcoholism. I don't want to trigger nothing. Let's go get tea or water.
It's like, I thought you meant a drink.
So when he said that, I was like, yeah, like whatever, we can go out. But I just wanted to be PC when I asked him to go out.
Yeah, so I took her to a bar near my job, and...
So after several rounds of drinks and finding out that they are both lefties, they queerly walked the gritty streets of New York, hand in hand until the moon came out to dance. And the most magical part of the night?
Kissing under the fireworks in Manhattan.
It's 4th of July, and so there was literally fireworks as we kissed. It was amazing.
Our first date set the tone for our relationship. I was just able to like experience a romance that in my head was fairy tale, and I was like having that fairy tale moment that like, so that was nice.
Morticia and Devin sitting in the tree. KISSING.
First comes love, then comes signal. But it is really beautiful to hear them love on one another. I asked Devin, how has it been being in a polyamorous relationship?
What I've noticed throughout the 2 years that we've been dating is that the fact that I have the option of being open and having the option to like explore and have other intimate relationships, it actually makes my desire for other relationships less prevalent. And I think that people kind of like taken back by that. They think that, oh, like you're poly, like yeah, that just means like, oh, you want to like go and fuck everything. And like, that's really not the case. The fact that I have the freedom to choose makes me want to choose her so much more.
Polyamory confuses some people in a similar way that bisexuality is often looked down on. But polyamory isn't new by any means. Long before our society's puritanical views on love, sex, and gender, before agriculture was so prominent, many cultures practice polyamory. But being poly doesn't mean folks are afraid or don't want commitment, the same way being bi or even being pansexual doesn't mean folks are being greedy. For many, like Devin, these identities are liberating practices that move away from the rigid norms of heteronormativity.
Those words have been very freeing for me. I think that pansexuality recognizes the limitless possibilities of my attraction. I refuse to be confined by society's expectations of like who I'm supposed to love or who I'm supposed to fuck or anything in between that. And then me being polyamorous also recognizes the limitless possibilities of my love. Like the way that I like to explain it to a lot of folks is my love is not an hourglass. And my ability to love one person does not at all take away from my ability to love another. And so both of those things combined, I think they really define me because I often define myself as like the limitless possibilities of man.
Did y'all hear that? The limitless possibilities of man. Sounds so freeing. Makes me think of a line from pleasure activism, that pleasure is a measure of freedom. This is also the case for Morticia, who says her journey has also been quite liberating.
I would say my healthiest, one of my healthiest relationships. Like going into it, it's crazy. Like it's like identifying as a femme person and thinking that it was appropriate to, or that it was, ideal to seek out someone who was quite masculine to have some sort of happily ever after. And I think that shifted. I'm actually not quite sure when that shifted, but I think coming to New York and being able to see other walks of life kind of like helped give me a little more language to it. And I was just like, oh, duh.
As someone who is also partnered, I'm occasionally asked what are the quote-unquote secrets to success. I have my thoughts, but I wanted to hear what they'd say.
Communication. Like a fuck ton of communication, all of the communication that could possibly happen.
You laughed, you agree?
Yeah, that was going to be my first word as well. Was like communication, honesty, things important, transparency. You can like slash those.
And I'll add to that, I think keeping friendship as the foundation is really important. That's what works for me and Danye. And watching them, I can tell that that's a part of their formula as well. One thing that I really admire about them is that by choosing each other, they've also chose themselves. Going against what society deems acceptable or normal and defining what love and happiness looks like for them because it's what they deserve. Or, as Devin beautifully puts it,
I think that us as trans people, it's really hard navigating a world that tells us that we don't deserve the love that we have, and that it's like something like unheard of or unexpected or out of the ordinary. And on one hand, I want to say that our love is extraordinary, which it very much is, but at the same time, not out of the ordinary in the ways that, like, us as trans people are absolutely capable and deserving of, like, this miraculous fairy tale love that cis people are, you know, told about their entire lives, you know, from, like, every little Disney movie or, you know, rom-com, like, that we see on television. Like, we deserve all those things, and, like, those things are possible, and I think that we have that.
Devin and Morticia, our very own fairy tale love story, complete with all the magic and the laughs and adventure and fireworks. The fireworks.
I think that I get a lot of fireworks from our friendship. I think being able to see him as a friend and a partner and a lover really gives me fireworks.
I like to love my partner publicly. We, like, jump on top of some, like, statue in the middle of the city and, like, yell out, "I love this woman," because I do. And I love seeing the smile on her face. I love doing almost anything that brings her joy, that allows others to see her joy, because it's what she deserves.
How do you feel in those moments when Devin proclaims his love in front of the world?
It's so mixy because I love that. I love that Devin wants to proclaim his love for me. But internally,
she hates it.
I want so badly to be like,
get down. I mean, this is the most beautiful, freeing, loving relationship that I think I've ever been in. I feel so incredibly accepted. I feel like I'm not judged for my attractions. She meets my needs. You know, and those needs are not just sexual, but also emotional, mental, spiritual, like all of these things. Like, she leaves me with room for my own growth. I feel like I grow more and more each day with her. I mean, she makes me just as happy as I think that I make her. You know, and that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
You better not make me cry.
That's our show. Special thanks to my pleasure activists and today's guests, Ericka Hart, Devin Lowe, and Morticia Godiva. And a big shout out to the OG pleasure activist, Adrienne Maree Brown, for her brilliant work. If you're listening, I hope to one day give you a big hug. Your book really shifted how I walk through this world, and I thank you. Let's Get Back to Queer is produced by myself, Brandon Nick, and my great-great-grandchildren, Shannon Sherd and Glenn Quentin George. This episode was edited by myself with sound design and engineering from Evan Joseph. And a huge thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in to another episode of Let's Get Back to Queer. If y'all are liking what you hear, then please, please, please share this with all your peoples and your people's peoples and tell them to get in. Also, not too late to join us on Patreon and get some dope bonus content. Check us out at letsgetbacktoqueer.com to support. Join us next time. Bye.